What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 7 of Can This Even Be Called a Music Club? I am here with the lads, and we are prepared to talk about some of the most interesting albums of the second quarter, April to June of 2025. My name is Matt. I am repping the classic post-metal band ISIS on my t-shirt today with a shirt that I purchased at a concert in Philadelphia in 2005. One of the best shows I've ever seen. Um, and today I'm going to be talking about the insane album by Shearling, Mother Effer, I Am Both, Amen and Hallelujah is how I'm going to phrase that personally. Um, what else we got?
Don't you
Dave,
say like the A word and the H word too?
in the title.
They say a lot of bad words, and he says bad words for sure.
Uh, we'll get into it. Dave, what you got?
I'm wearing a shirt from Contemplator, a Quebec-based progressive metal instrumental band. And fun fact, oh, I'm blurry. Fun fact, yesterday I went to the opera house with Christian, the guy from Contemplator, and we went to see Schoenberg's Pierrot Lunaire in theatrical form. It was a bit strange. They added new things and kind of new narratives, but it was very good. I'm very satisfied with the play yesterday. It was great.
That's awesome. And your album for the quarter?
Yes, I'm talking about Snooze.
All right. So don't hit snooze on the podcast, everyone. Jeff, I know what shirt you're wearing. I
Yep,
love this band.
the Tea Club. So I got this at a Haken Tea Club and Thank You Scientist show.
Sick.
And
That's a great
this
show.
this shirt I actually got for free because the the ink kind of like faded, and so they just were giving out shirts free. And a funny thing about that show is the power went out in the venue right after the Tea Club played, and
Oh,
so it was during when Thank You Scientist was supposed to play. We were all outside waiting for things to get resolved. Thank You Scientist ended up going to some person's basement and like playing a show at their house. But Haken stayed behind, and so I stayed to see Haken because it was actually my first time seeing them,
Mm,
and they get to play their full set when the power came back. But some people got a intimate Thank You Scientist show
that's
at
incredible. I
that
saw
night.
Haken in Philly really late. They went on late at this weird like venue on the north end of Philly, which is really far from my house, and I was going home that night. And I had a couple of friends with me who were like kind of into Haken, but not as much as me. And they played a long set, and then it was like almost 2 in the morning, and they came back up for the encore and started playing the first notes of Visions. And I leaned to my friend, and
Nice.
I was like, "This is a 22-minute song." He was like,
Yeah, they had a big encore at the that show too.
yeah.
And it was one of the
They
early
put
songs
on
as well.
they put on a
I
great show.
just need to say though, the Tea Club, such a great band. What's your favorite Tea Club album? Go.
Quickly, quickly, quickly.
Hell yeah. Jeff?
I think that's probably the
I
only
like
one I've
all of
heard.
them. I can't pick a favorite.
Dan from the T Club is now the bassist for Kansas.
Oh,
Oh
Oh
yeah, I
yeah,
think I saw
Yeah,
that.
he was
yeah.
touring with them, and then they just brought him on full time, which I guess means they're going to be still making music. I don't know. I also know the T Club is working on, I think, album number 6, so
cool.
stoked for that.
I
I
also
think
grabbed like all the T Club. I also grabbed all the T Club like CDs at their merch table during that show.
They're great.
Yeah.
Kansas re released an album, I think in 2016, 2020. Yeah, so they have like two recent-ish albums. Not dead yet.
Didn't know that. Okay, Jeff, your album for the
Oh
combo.
yeah, my album is Ockrust. It is their latest album, Waving at the Sky.
Very cool. And Bishop.
Shirt today is it's actually not a band shirt. I went with something neutral. This is a shirt that my bae got me. It is just a Halloween bear. It's really cute.
Could be.
I really love it. Uh, It
I
could be a
want that
band
to
shirt.
I want that to
Yeah,
be a band shirt. I would listen to that band.
exactly.
Yeah, it could be some sort of dungeon synth artist, I wouldn't be surprised, but the shirt's kind of old. It has a big stain on the back. I don't know how they got like they were just sweating in the center of their back or something, which is unusual, but there is a stain back there. Um, don't know why, but anyway, album that I picked was the new Swans record, Birthing.
All right, and I think that is up first. So tell us what you felt
Yes,
about the new Swans.
new Swans. Before I basically wrote a full review for this as if I were writing just a text review on the site. Before I read that, and hopefully to be succinct, there is a tweet slash quote that I wanted to kind of preface everything with. It relates to my pick and it relates to Matt's pick. Um, the tweet says this. It's really just mostly the first sentence, but the tweet is vomiting is the last true Zen state a modern Westerner experiences. A moment of complete worldly abandon and total thoughtless focus. Shitting is supposed to be that too, but phones have ruined it. Nobody's on their phone while they're puking, and if they are, then God has truly lost. That quote will come into play later. It'll become relevant later.
It's actually on the, on the insert when you buy the vinyl album. That quote is there
On what?
on the Swans album.
Oh yeah, it is there. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a big ex Elon fan. They're talking a lot. Um, but yeah, this was like a sentimental listen to me for me. Listening to it, it reminded me of a lot of things. Uh, I was reminded of David Lynch's thoughts on transcendental meditation. I was reminded of my dad listening to public castration as a good idea in the living room when like I was a teenager and we lived in this apartment and just being shocked when he told me, yeah, they've been making music since the 80s. Was reminded of being maybe 13 through 15 and being a naive metalhead and listening to Throbbing Gristle's Hamburger Lady and like Current 93's I Have a Special Plan for This World for the first time. And they fucking like horrified me. But it was awesome because they horrified me in this way that felt way more real than any other metal band had like ever scared me or whatever. And most significantly, I was reminded of listening to My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope to the Sky, also at the recommendation of my dad, alone in my bed at night and being blown away by that. It was the first Swans album that I listened to all the way through. And it really kind of changed the way that I thought about music, like after the very first listen. And so all of that is to say that listening to Birthing, which Michael Gira, main guy, the main force of Swans, has called he says that it's the final like big sound Swans record, which they've kind of been going on forever, a long time now. So listening to Birthing feels sentimental to me. I grew up listening to this band, and when I was writing this and thinking about it, I think that if I had to pick one single favorite song of all time, it actually would be a Swan song, which is I Was a Prisoner in Your Skull, just because it had a huge impact on my taste when I was younger. And I still think that it's like a magical song. It's very weird. And half of the song is really not even music, it's just speaking, but I still think it's really cool. And so if we consider My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope to the Sky to be the first installation of this modern big sound era of Swans, then we've had 15 years and 7 full-length LPs of this sound. And that's 15 years of just striving towards Michael's ultimate vision, whatever vision it is that he had of music and word combined. And I think that that's what allows Swans to really exist in the way that it has, which is this absurd, unrelenting devotion to an artistic vision. And I think that that quality is the same quality that's shared by professional athletes, by experts in scientific fields, by pretty much everyone's our like favorite writers and artists, musicians, whoever. It's a form of insanity that can be acquired by anyone with a goal. It's an unremarkable trait of lunacy and creativity that sometimes often leads to extraordinary results. So all of that, again, just to be like, where does birthing live in the constellation of Swan's work? I don't know the answer to that. No one knows the answer to that. If anyone does know the answer, it's Michael. And the very few interviews that I've listened to with him, he's not going to fucking say that. He's not going to like say yes or no about, he's not going to give a concrete answer about what an album means or doesn't mean or some shit. But I can give you my opinion and finally actually say what I think about the album. It's good. Is it what I expected? No. Is it my favorite Swans album? No. Does it make complete sense now that I've listened to it? Yes. So if you go into this album with the expectation that it will make To Be Kind sound like The Burning World, you will be let down for sure. And that is a good thing. You can go be let down that a guy who's 71 years old is tired. If that's how you feel, you can be let down. Go be let down. But Swans, especially big sound Swans, is characterized by paradoxes. It's like a funny way to phrase it, but I think that it's pretty true. Is Michael loves to just say shit is actually the opposite of what it is. He says that hatred is love and that black is white, pain is pleasure, death is life, dreams are reality. Through his lyrics, there's this sense of yin and yang, or as above, so below, all is one is all. That ideology is like super prevalent in all of his writing, but the music is like that too. There's extreme volume and intense performance, and through that, we become numb to the cacophony. And dare I say, I'm so embarrassed to like say this. I feel like such a guy right now. Like, yo, I love David Lynch. But we transcend beyond the aggression, and it like you enter a meditative state almost. Yeah. And one last bit of that is Michael like often blasphemes. He's always mad at God. And yet if it fucking walks like a duck and talks like a duck, Swans makes worship music. Regardless of what they're worshiping, their music is praise music. It's worship music, 100%. Two last things. The cover art's a damn hole. We leave one when we're born. We enter one after we die. We've come to expect pummeling and abuse from this band. And yet, to me, it's like one of their happiest sounding records. It's full of singing and bells. It's really not that scary in comparison. Spare for maybe The Merge. It's really not that scary sounding. And so it makes complete sense that the death of Swans as we know it is called birthing. It's really a celebration of life. And so I really enjoyed it. My final bit here is to anyone who's listened to it. Okay, there's a part in the track Guardian Spirit where the lyrics say this. So he's yelling, he's always yelling. Now get on this stick. Now swim in this shit. Now dig in this pit. Suck milk from my tit. Come Take What Is Left, Now Cut Off My Sex. So I've probably listened to the album 3 times now. And every time I get to this point, my brain is always expecting him to say, cut off my dick. And like he doesn't say that, but I can imagine him writing this by hand and being like, oh, okay, I need one more word that kind of has this sound. And he's like, the only word left is dick, but I'm not gonna write that. So like I need to add one more line. So I'm gonna scribble dick out and I'll say come I'll add this little come take what's left bit, and then I won't say dick, I'll say cut off my sex. Uh I just I think that every time I've listened to that track, and it's super funny. Uh but those are all my thoughts. I love it. To me, it's not my favorite Swans record. It makes me feel kind of sappy. It reminds me of some of my experiences where I was listening to the most new music, and I think that it's good. I'm not surprised that it is what it is, which is I did kind of think maybe it would be as over the top as you could ever imagine it, but it's not that. And I feel kind of silly for thinking that maybe it would be that, but I still think that it's really good. That's my
Can I go
review.
first?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna go first because I don't know shit about swans, right? Okay. I'm just gonna preface it with that.
I don't either.
Like the only thing I heard about swans before that was the album Sear, uh, which was recommended to me by some other friends. And I listened to it and it was good. You know, I was impressed by the album. I don't remember much now because it's been a while since I listened to it, but you know, it's full of long, repetitive songs, and you know, there's something about that's kind of that kind of repetition, that transcendental state of, I don't know, of a song structure or something. There's really something to be said about that. But uh like I haven't listened to any other Swans album, so the way you talk about them, it's a big deal. Is that right? It's a big, no, it's a big deal, Swans.
Yeah.
And they've been
Uh
going at it for a while.
yeah, a long time. Yeah, since like 82. And I
Wow.
didn't mention it in my review, but I think that with this new era for like annoying millennial guys, uh when To Be Kind came out, which is the record after the Seer, the Needle Drop gave it like a 10 out of 10 or something. And I think that introduced a bunch of people to Swans and what they were doing. But yeah, they've been making like arguably their most standoffish or offensive music came out in the 80s and 90s. And while their music is like horrifying, To Be Kind, I do think is amazing and horrifying in its own right. Uh, it's somehow still a little bit more palatable than, you know, public castration is a good idea. But it kind of got memed on in a way, and then continuously got memed on. So for annoying guys like myself who are embarrassed to be like, oh, I love David Lynch, uh, Swans is important to them too, and older guys alike, you know.
Okay. So, one thing I'd like to mention for like prog heads like me and Jeff and Matt, um, like in the prog forums or communities, people always tend to equate long songs with prog, you know? And this is not the case. Like a long song does not prog make. And it's really when you listen to Swans or Birthing or any other of their album, I guess, uh, you can really tell that because it's like it's the same riff over like 20 minutes, But there's a build up and there's, other there's a progression, sure, but it's not like a typical prog rock song or prog metal song that we envision when we see a 20-minute playtime. You when you're a prog head, you already imagine like the kind of song and the structure that's gonna be behind it. But when you listen to Swans and or Birthing, like it's totally different. So it don't go in thinking it's gonna be prog, but think it's gonna be it's like they call themselves an experimental rock band, and I kind of agree with that. It's not, I don't know if it's experimental in the true sense of the term, but it's definitely a different and somewhat unique take on the rock genre. And
Every song has two riffs. There are two
yeah,
riffs in every song, if that. And each song is about one thing. And that one thing is like the sun is really bad or God is really bad. But you get the sense that he's like, he loves God. Okay. He's saying crap. He would say anything is bad. Okay. That's just what he does. But he's lying. And he's playing two riffs. And then the next song's 40 minutes, and 10 minutes of that are an introduction to the two riffs. And then he's gonna say that some good thing is bad or some bad thing is good. It that's the formula.
yeah, that's basically it. But
Yeah.
um, on Birthing, yeah, like it's pretty soft, right? Except the what's it called? The merger.
Yeah, the merge has this weird intro that genuinely is unlike any other moment in the Swans catalog. Where when I listened to it the first time, I thought that like some tech death band had just started playing after the album ended, but it was not that.
Oh yeah. But I loved it. I really like the other songs too, but this one, it kind of hits. It's very jarring, you'd say, when you it first hits, but it's very good. It's I think it's great. I think it's a great album, actually. That's what I want to say. I wasn't much fan of the last song though. I think it maybe it's too ethereal or too I don't know. There's something lacking for me in that song. But like it's a very long album. It's almost 2 hours long, but it doesn't feel that way. You listen to it and you just, you take it in and you have a good time. That's my experience with it. That's my review.
That's a good review.
I can go next because I also don't have much familiarity with Swans, and I'm kind of in the same boat as Dave. Kind of uh, like obviously it's not Prague, but with the long songs, that whole thing. And I actually the thing I can relate it to is Devin Townsend's ambient records. He's done a handful of them now. He has DevLab, The Hummer, Ghost, and The Puzzle. There's elements from all those albums that I kind of heard in this Swans album. And actually the last track I actually kind of did like because it reminded me of some of the songs from Devin Townsend's Ghost. So the more soft ambient kind of more happy sounding ambient stuff, and I really connected with that. So um, that's kind of my connection to this type of music through Devin Townsend because he does veer into that ambient noise experimental space sometimes. He doesn't only do prog.
I gotta say, like Devin Townsend never clicked with me.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah. I listen to all this stuff like in all the genres he covers, and um, I find things I like in kind of all the things he does. He doesn't, not all of his albums have all great songs, but there are pieces of all his albums that I do like latch onto.
I think I kind of enjoyed Deconstruction. I think that's what it's
Yeah.
called.
And that
And
came out alongside Ghost. So that was like the polar
okay,
opposite of Ghost.
Hmm.
okay. And Ziltoid, the
Yeah.
Omniscient. So these are the two albums that I remember liking,
Yeah.
and like pretty much
Yeah.
that nothing
And
of
Ghost,
the rest.
I really enjoyed when it came out because I enjoyed listening to Ghost and Deconstruction back to back and how opposite they were. And the ambience in this album really reminded me a lot of the parts of Ghost, especially the last track, Rope Away. So I also really like this album. It's probably my favorite album that Bishop has picked, and I normally
Wow.
don't really have I really don't have much connection to the stuff you pick because I'm not really into the genres you like as much. But this one, through that Devin Townsend connection, I kind of clicked with it a bit more than your other picks.
So do you think it's better than Yahweh Will Nailgun?
I mean,
It's a tough one.
it's definitely bigger and longer than that album, so it has
That's
more to
that's
kind
just
of
facts.
yeah, more to kind of just like digest, whereas the Yahweh Nail Gun is simpler and I felt there was a lot more to dig into in this album. So I wouldn't say one's better than the other. It's just they're too different for me to like directly compare them.
Yahweh Nailgun has more drum hits despite being 1/5 of the runtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, Dave, you should listen to Be Kind. That one is just like it's a fan favorite and for good
Yeah.
reason. It's super good and it's like really scary and probably their most aggressive. I feel like the fact that you listened to the Seer, that was where I'm making the argument that My Father Will Guide Me is like their first album in the big sound era of Swans. And I think that's true, but by the time that they hit the Seer with like the 30-minute track, I think that's where they were like, yeah, this is just what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do for like the foreseeable future. And that one's also, I mean, they're all fan favorites for different reasons, but To Be Kind is where I feel like it got memed on the most, it got the most like internet attention, and it's probably their most aggressive. So I think that you would like it for that reason. And Dave, I feel like you would probably like My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope because some of the parts are
Yeah.
uh yeah, ambient. The track that I mentioned in the review of uh I Was a Prisoner in Your Skull is off of their record Soundtracks for the Blind. And that one is odd. It came out in 2001 and there's like a lot of ambient bits, parts that are like weirdly dancey, like electronic music. That one's really, really bizarre. Maybe if I was trying to be cool, that I would say that's my favorite one. But it's hard to pick a favorite one. They all have cool bits.
I'm taking notes though. I'll definitely listen to both of them.
Yeah.
So I listened to the Seer. That was my beginning with Swans. I don't even remember why it was popular enough in whatever circles I was in on the internet at that time when it came out. And I was like, okay. I knew of the band as like this experimental, but not quite my taste of weird avant-garde rock stuff. But it was like 2 hour album, 30-minute song. Like, yeah, I'm gonna check that out. That's right up my alley. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was one of my top albums of was it 2012 or
Yeah.
something like that when it came out. I listened to Be Kind a few times. I think I listened to The Glowing Man once or twice. I think they have another album after that that I may not have ever heard leading up to Birthing.
Mhm.
Um, I saw them live in like 2017 or 18, and toward the end of their 2 hour-ish set, someone collapsed and just like face planted on the floor of the
Oh
venue
no.
and had to be carried out because of like the intensity of the music. And also he was probably drunk, but just like it is
Yeah.
a it at that time when they were playing these big, loud, aggressive, repetitive pieces, it was a like visceral experience to see them perform live. And so this just overwhelmed this guy. And that's always like when I think about Swans, I think about that dude passing out. Birthing is not that band. it's not that Swans anymore. It's so much lighter and almost gentler in a way. It's still got these, interspersed bits of aggression. It sort of picks up to, hey, that's what I remember Swans being toward the end of the Healers, toward very late in the song Birthing. There's like it does this sort of heavy lurching 3/4, or not even 3/4, just sort of a 3 count rhythm that's like very Swans. That's the kind of thing they do. Um, but then there's all these other pieces that are like long and, as Dave pointed out, not a lot going on in them. And the second worst version of a long song is one that's mostly ambient and doesn't have a lot going on. The worst version of a long song, one of the worst songs I've ever heard in my life, is Neil Young and Crazy Horse put out an album called Psychedelic Pill, which is a cool album name. You see that and you're like, this is going to be a fun. I like psychedelic music. And the opening track is 27 minutes long. It's called Drifting Back. And I was like, I'd like to see what Neil Young's going to do for 27 minutes. And the answer is he's going to play one folk chord progression and sing one verse over it. And that's it. And I cut it off halfway through. I was like, this is awful. This is it. Like, this is the whole, it's not even not prog. It's just like you took a 3 minute folk song and just kept playing it for 27 minutes. I was like, what are we doing here?
Skipping on the vinyl.
Huh?
The cassette is the vinyl is skipping, right?
I just noticed on Wikipedia when I was looking this up to refresh my memory that the vinyl version of this album has like the second, or it's 18 minutes of the song, and then the other 9 minutes of the song is on side 2. I'm like, you just play side 1 again. You didn't need to put more of this song on another part of the vinyl. That's just a waste of compression. But no, back to Swans. I mean, I sort of appreciate, I like big, loud, angry Swans more than like what I call jokingly in the chat explosions in the Swans, because there's a lot of like major key, almost post-rock, uplifting moments on various tracks of this album that I guess
not a fair comparison. Foul. Huh? Not a fair comparison. Foul. They existed in 82. Not a fair comparison.
Well, sure, foul. But I mean, musically speaking, they weren't making post-rock in 82 of this style. So you can be influenced by things that came out later than you.
Yeah, it's fair to that term, like crescendo core. Like you could kind of make the argument they're one of the penultimate, like, we have one riff and then it's gonna go like this. Okay. No, you're right.
But Swans is like decrescendo core.
A little bit, yeah. They will often like start maximalist and pull down from there. A couple other notes is like when Michael started singing toward the beginning of the first track, I was like, he kind of sounds like old Johnny Cash.
That's a good comparison.
The timbre that I got from him. And you mentioned like this is sort of like tired Swans. I kind of see that. Like this is a different era, a different approach. It's a more subdued, restrained version of their sound. And if you can appreciate that, you'll like this album. If you don't, they have plenty of back catalog for you to dive into. So I thought this was really interesting as like seeing how they're evolving in their older age.
What's your favorite album?
From Swans?
Yeah.
I'd say The Seer.
Bish?
Soundtracks for the Blind has my favorite song of all time on it. My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope was the first one that I listened to, and like it was the first one I listened to all the way through, and I had a special moment with it. But I think that I probably revisit My Father Will Guide Me the most. For a very specific, especially that first track, No Words, No Thoughts. I listened to that a lot when
I just checked quickly,
I didn't have as many good things going on.
I just checked quickly. It's much shorter, right?
So yeah, that was their comeback album. They hadn't put out a record in like over 10 years. And Soundtracks for the Blind was, I'm pretty sure, their last full-length studio record. It's very bizarre. It's all over the place. They came back with My Father Will Guide Me Up a Rope in 2010, and then in 2012 they put out The Seer, and that's why I was saying I feel like by that point they said, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Let's make a 30-minute song, and I commend them a lot. The reason why I feel maybe especially forgiving about this record is because it makes sense. It makes sense aesthetically for what we've been given context with all their other music. He's always saying some good thing is bad. So like the album that is the death of Swans as we know it is called Birthing. We kind of have built up this expectation to be destroyed or horrified by their music, and yet it's like really kind of major key a lot, and there's like bells everywhere and choir. I think that's kind of funny to subvert that expectation in a way. But at the same time, another quote that I was reminded of is like Bruce Lee talking about fearing the man who's tried this, who's done the same kick 1,000 times versus 1,000 different kicks one time. Michael was just like, oh, I have this idea. I guess I'm going to do it for almost 20 years straight. I think that's amazing. It's no surprise that some masterpieces came out of that. If you're making like 20 hours of music and the goal is pretty much the same, but with just a different iteration or a different lineup or
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna refine it every step of the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess final thing before Matt goes, I made that quote, or I referenced that quote of vomiting being the last true Zen state a modern Westerner experiences. In my opinion, Swans is, you could either say that they are the vomiting or they are the clarity post vomiting. I lean more towards, if we're to use this example, Swans has been vomiting for a super long time. They're not worried about puking. Swans music is more the post vomit, feeling better, post purge, euphoria or whatnot. That is my view of Swans. My view on how that relates to Shearling is different, but that's not the album that I picked. I would love to hear what Matt says in that regard.
Shall we get into it?
Let's hear it. I wrote more about this than Swans.
It's so funny to, we had a little mini argument in the lead up to this about sort of the musical connection and overlap between Swans and Shearling and how much that existed or didn't exist. There's clearly the influence of, older, angrier Swans in the DNA of Shearling, but other influences too. I'm not saying they're by any means similar bands. I think sometimes people will lump them together because it's big, long, loud experimental music, and there's only so much of that. So you find two bands that have done it. It's like, yeah, they're the same band, but they're not. But that being said, I was quietly chuckling loudly inside myself when you said, but Swans is actually worship music, because I'm going to make almost exactly that same point about this Shearling album. And I'm going to start doing that by reading an excerpt from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15.
Oh my God, dude.
Oh, wow.
This is going to make sense to us. If you've heard this album, if you're listening to the pod and you haven't heard Shearling yet, you're going to, why is this dude quoting the Bible? But I think you all are going to get it.
And
Paul writes,
motherfucker, I am both.
Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15, but someone may ask, how will the dead be raised? What kind of bodies will they have? What a foolish question. When you put a seed into the ground, it doesn't grow into a plant unless it dies first. And what you put in the ground is not the plant that will grow, but only a bare seed of wheat or whatever it is you're planting. Then God gives it the new body he wants it to have. A different plant grows from each kind of seed. Similarly, there are different kinds of flesh, one kind for humans, another for animals, another for birds, and another for fish. There are also bodies in the heavens and bodies on the earth. The glory of the heavenly bodies is different from the glory of the earthly bodies. The sun has one kind of glory, while the moon and stars each have another kind, and even the stars differ from each other in their glory. It is the same way with the resurrection of the dead. Our earthly bodies are planted in the ground when we die, but they will be raised to live forever. Our bodies are buried in brokenness, but they will be raised in glory. They are buried in weakness, but they will be raised in strength. They are buried as natural human bodies, but they will be raised as spiritual bodies. For just as there are natural bodies, there are also spiritual bodies. The scriptures tell us the first man, Adam, became a living person, but the last Adam, that is Christ, is a life-giving spirit. What comes first is the natural body, then the spiritual body comes later. Adam, the first man, was made from the dust of the earth, while Christ, the second man, came from heaven. Earthly people are like the earthly man, and heavenly people are like the heavenly man. Just as we are now like the earthly man, we will someday be like the heavenly man. What I am saying, dear brothers and sisters, is that our physical bodies cannot inherit the kingdom of God. These dying bodies cannot inherit what will last forever. But let me reveal to you a wonderful secret. We will not all die, but we will all be transformed. It will happen in a moment, in the blink of an eye, when the last trumpet is blown. For when the trumpet sounds, those who have died will be raised to live forever, and we who are living will also be transformed. For our dying bodies must be transformed into bodies that will never die. Our mortal bodies must be transformed into immortal bodies. Then, when our dying bodies have been transformed into bodies that will never die, this scripture will be fulfilled. Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? For sin is the sting that results in death, and the law gives sin its power. But thank God, he gives us victory over sin and death through our Lord Jesus Christ.
All right, you'll need to explain.
Amen and hallelujah. So, why did I talk about that? Because Alexander Kent has caught a glimpse of the heavenly body that is coming and has been driven insane by it, Lovecraft style. He knows that there's something that's not this, and now being stuck in this is like finding yourself groping your way around an alien planet. He has seen the other, and this album is other. It is a cacophony of religious, sexual, and animal imagery woven together into an unrecognizable menagerie of something resembling human experience. It is a funhouse mirror that, instead of twisting your outer image, reveals all the ugliness of the naturally twisted interior. And that's my meta text.
It's like a biblically accurate angel, right? It's the thing, right?
It's something like that. So this album is so deeply about bodies and the experience of body and the alienness of body and I don't know, the discomfort, the existential discomfort of finding oneself in one's body. And
So isn't it about dysphoria then?
but it's not dysphoria. That word is typically, associated with like gender dysphoria, like I'm in the wrong sex of a body. But this album, I feel like,
Yeah.
is more about I'm in the wrong corporeal form. It's deeper than just like I need a different body. It's like there's something about this body that is not right in a sense of humanity almost. And
Like I shouldn't be human.
yeah, or like I am something else, and I'm struggling to accept that something else is trapped in this meat skeleton flesh thing.
That's just a furry then.
If you take the horse metaphors literally, sure, it gets to the end of this, album, and he's like, I realize now that I have a mane and I have a tail and all this stuff, but all of that I think is symbolizing a recognition of the other, which is symbolized by horse and animal and farm animal imagery, but it isn't literally that. Much like a misreading of the Bible in a literal sense will give you all kinds of wrong ideas about God, a misreading of Mother Effer, I am both in a literal sense will not give you the right picture of, I think, what Alex is struggling and trying to convey here. So into the album itself, I didn't. So this is the new evolution of the band Sprain, which was Alex Kent's previous band. They put out The Lamb as Effigy a few years
So
ago, and
good.
I sort of listened to it a little bit, but I didn't have the right context for like what it was I was hearing. It was the same, sorry for the comparison, but it was the same thing of Swans where it's like, hey, this is a 2 hour album and it has really long songs on it. I'm gonna love this. And I listened to it and I was like, I don't love this. I don't quite understand what I'm supposed to do with this. It's Alex has a particular style of vocal delivery or various styles, but it's often sort of talking, sort of yelling and ranting. And I think that's more true here than it was in Sprain, but there was it's not a lyrical delivery a lot of the time. And I have since learned that one of his big influences is Aaron Weiss from Me Without You, which as soon as I read that, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense because he has this sort of, it's more musical, but it has that rambling, uh, cathartic vocal quality that now I understand, when I'm listening to Alex sing or vocalize in whatever way he is, I can hear that a lot. And a lot of the metaphors he uses are pulled from the Me Without You playbook as well. So I that's really cool. There's a particular moment, I think, on track 7 of The Lamb as Effigy, where he delivers some line about something, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is Aaron Weiss. Like it's just he's channeling Aaron Weiss through his body. Um, so fantastic. So I kind of went back and listened to Sprain again after getting into Shearling and was like, I get it now. Like this is actually really awesome. And so that's going to end up being very high on my, eventual albums of the decade list, as will this probably. It there's a little bit of DNA of like 80s King Crimson. The song Elephant Talk has that same, like you put it on, you're like, what's happening? This isn't like the music I'm used to hearing. What is this dude rambling about over these riffs? Um, and maybe there's some other like 80s no wave post-punk kind of stuff that does that. I don't listen to a lot of that stuff, so I can't make good comparisons. But I think that's kind of what he's pulling from. That like post-punk, noise rock, the loud, angry version of Swans and some other stuff like that are all providing the sort of musical building blocks that Shearling starts with and then takes to all kinds of other places. Um, they have some of those, pounding, repetitive, heavy, dissonant riffs that don't go anywhere. They have some big, spacious, like booming, heavy parts. And then they have parts where it's like subdued. There's electronic elements, there's sampled elements, there's lots of effects used. There's even like I wrote down orange milk vaporwave style influence and some power electronics, that really like unsettling style of music. There was a when he starts spelling out Idaho Hemingway pretty early in the song, there's a sense of like, I don't feel like I should be here. I shouldn't be seeing this and hearing this. Should I go? Like this is I feel like I stumbled into the wrong room and you were having like a mental breakdown and I'm not sure I should
Yeah.
be here for the rest of it. But no, it's great. Uh they do a lot of different musical stuff and it feels continuous. It doesn't feel like a long song that sort of stops and starts and does different things. It is surprisingly cohesive for the 62 minutes. Um, I noticed maybe halfway through, and I don't know why it took me a while to really catch this. I think I was just sort of noticing how I think what happened is there's a part where the drums get reversed and the drums in the background are reversed and there's like synth layers and samples over top of that. And I realized they're doing all kinds of stuff production wise to the music and to the construction of the music, the way it's built from sometimes riffs live and sometimes samples, but they are not doing anything to Alex's vocals. They
Mm.
are raw the entire time. And it's all up to him to deliver, whether it's screeching and raving or whether it's whispering or whether it's this like tender high falsetto, whatever it is, but they
That's
aren't using effects on the vocals as an aspect of the music. They
it's a
just don't do it.
performance. Yeah,
Huh?
it's a performance. It's
Yeah. And but it like it's a performance that is I wrote a good line about it, or I thought it was. Where did it go? Yeah. It's really interesting that so many effects and recording tricks are implemented on the music, but none on the vocals, which remain stark, naked, and corporally tangible, like a photograph of a body pasted on a dripping surrealist painted landscape. It's just like the lack
Mhm.
of it's like the vocals are on top of this music and they're connected to it, but this is almost more like a stage play. And in fact, to point that out, one of the first times I listened to this album all the way through, I went to YouTube and there's a live performance of it that is essentially the same as the recording, but just done
Oh
live.
yeah.
And it's really sick. It's filmed well. The sound quality is good. And Alex strips down to his briefs midway through the set and stays that way for the rest of the album. And it's very intense. It has this like classic mid 2000s crazy live performance vibe to it. It's just awesome. Um, there are so the hour-long song sort of vacillates between very musical parts where there's a riff in a time signature doing something structured and parts that are much more loose and ambient and in an old KO dot style way where it was like cued and everyone was sort of watching Toby and so it's not played to a click track. Alex is driving this music and the experimentation in that way. Um, the a couple of my favorite verses in the song, the one that starts "My little Idaho sealed in cotton," which is this sort of sickly sounding drifting on a piece of ice down a stream, with just barren tundra around you. The verses right in that area are great. That's kind of midway through the album. Um, there's a section where Adam, the voice of Adam, is in dialogue with Eve, and the lyrics are sort of really similarly coupled between those two verses, but the musical style changes completely in between the two. There's I put Sonic Youth style droning noise rhythm. And then very late, there's one verse that's just a really long single soliloquy that is a mad, feverish rant, but with surprising clarity and purpose. And that's where he's really diving into a lot of this gender and other bodily dysphoria. I wrote the word genderless dysphoria to tie back to what we were talking about earlier. There's a callback to the intro 49 minutes in. Hey, Prague, nice. And then toward the end, he yells, "I get it, I understand." And that's the verse where he's talking about I have a mane and I have a tail and I have hooves. And the contrast there is that the music behind that, or the sound behind him noticing that he understands, is some of the most unresolved and incoherent music in the album. So it's very like a clash of themes. Like, do you understand? Or if you do understand, does that represent this sort of otherness that is the true reality that's finally clicked? And then from there, there's a section that's deeply noise album, Merzbow-esque or old prurient, where it's like me and my friends used to make noise in college and thereafter. And one of the things we did was like plugging a mixer into itself and then messing with the knobs. You can get weird feedback, and there's almost exactly some of that around 54 minutes in here.
Okay.
And then it kind of dies down into this acoustic piano dulcimer part near the end, and Alex has kind of calmed down, and then he freaks out about what's going to happen to the horses, and the signs off. And then for the last 2 minutes of the album, is it a coincidence, given the imagery and given the album art, that the horns and other sounds that end the album kind of sound like glorified fart noises? Or another way to interpret it is gases escaping a decomposing corpse. Like the last 2 minutes of the album is just these like whining tones that kind of emulate that. It's nuts. I knew instantly that this album was going to be something special, and it was. And I'll close by reading Chief EJ's review on Bandcamp, which I think is great.
Yeah,
Genuinely
I
the
wanted to
most,
touch on that.
yeah, genuinely the most traumatized I've ever felt listening to an album. It's not an easy listen, not due to the fact that it isn't good, but because it challenges boundaries and delves into spiritual and psychological extremes. It's intense, poetic, hyperbolic, and emotionally draining by design. It's not comfortable, it's grotesque and haunting. It's a panic attack in the form of one grand 62-minute long track. God help us.
Hell yeah. Amen.
And hallelujah. Who
But
wants it?
this is like his MLP coming out album, right? Which explains why it's so good. That's my theory, right? Everything that's MLP themed is just great.
There might be a Shearling Violet Pony collab in the future. We really don't know.
Yo.
And that would be
It's
one
not
for the
zero.
ages. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a non-0% chance. Yeah. I almost don't want to go first. I
Yeah,
I want
please go last.
I'll go last.
Yeah, I want to save you for last, but I can go next. I don't have much to say because I didn't have time to go back and listen to it again and like take my notes and do a deep dive on it and whatever. But like it's kind of the follow-up to Sprain's Lamba's Effigy, which was incredible, right? It was a truly a masterpiece, and I was kind of bummed that kind of Sprain uh kind of disbanded, but sometime this year when this came out, like some I think it's Matt or maybe it's some other friends of mine, they pointed me towards that album and said that hey, that's the like kind of the follow-up to Sprain. And I'm like 62 minute a 62-minute track. Right on. I mean that I'm in, and it's it's a trip, okay? It's a challenging track to listen to, that's for
I
sure.
love
Uh,
challenging.
yeah, yeah, I like that. And I like the theatrical delivery of the vocals. I mean, that's something that I really like overall in general in different sorts of music and metal in prog and whatever. And this combines, like Matt said, a lot of, it covers a lot of grounds musically. It goes in like there's synth parts, there's noise rock, there's no wave post-punk, as you said, and it's all I think like the main driving force is really the vocals, because without them, it's kind of a soundtrack to nothing. But with them, it it all makes sense, and it's kind of self-reinforcing, or I don't know how to say it, but like both, it's greater than the sum of its parts. That's what I want to say, because you listen to it as an instrumental album, it wouldn't have the same impact. And obviously listen to an a cappella version, it would be a different thing too. But
That would probably work. If you had to pick the music or the vocals, you'd get the better experience of the album listening to the vocal track.
I don't know. I'm gonna make a karaoke version of that. So go to your local bar and
Clear the
ask for
bar
that
out and
song.
with this one simple trick.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh, I
okay.
I did forget to mention real quick. I told my daughter who is 12 that I was going to be reviewing this album on the podcast tonight, and I put it on for her, and we made it 5 minutes in, and she said to where Alex had started the first verse where he's doing this insane yelling. She said, "I don't think this is music." So that's fitting for the name of this podcast.
Wow.
Can this even be called music?
Wow.
In this case, no. And she said it sounds like it was made by aliens, which actually does kind of dovetail nicely with my idea that like he's getting at this otherness of, something that's not humanity. So yeah, she picked up on that. There you go. That's her review.
You need some you need to educate her, right?
She's too busy watching K-pop Demon Hunters.
I was gonna say, it
No.
sounds like she already probably has a more thorough grasp on it than most people.
Yeah.
This sounds like not music. Aliens made this. That's perfect. You get it. Yeah.
I should have been like, yeah, it was made by aliens.
She's like, oh my God.
So I can go
All right,
next.
I'm done.
Yeah. I also didn't have too much to say about that. I didn't take much notes on this one, but again, my only exposure to this kind of experimental ambient type stuff is through Devin Townsend. And while the Swans album is more like the Ghost album, with its more like
It's
happy
so
sounding,
different than
this
Devin Townsend.
this is more like the Hummer, DevLab, and the Puzzle, which is Devin's more like angry, crazy, experimental stuff. And I did enjoy it, but it is a tough listen. So it's quite experimental and quite like one long track, so it's like kind of a lot to get into, but it is a good album, and I feel these types of ambient experimental stuff you kind of have to just like just let it play and just kind of get into like a trance and just kind of get into it. It's not like a traditional song that you can just kind of like jam to. It's you kind of get into the right mindset for this type of music. And yeah, I didn't take the time to really delve into the kind of concept and the stuff that you went into, but I might have to take a few more listens and kind of give it more time to really get into that sort of stuff.
I've recommended this album to my friend because I know he's going to appreciate it because, we've been listening to the same weird experimental stuff since college. And he said, man, it's an hour long. Do I have to listen to this in one sitting? And I said, yeah, I think you do.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't, break this up into 8 tracks or whatever. It has different sections. You could do that, but
Mhm.
it really is like it's presented this way because it is one narrative experience front
Yeah.
to back.
And
I
the
think
the
that's
Devin
how it ought
Townsend
to be.
albums that I mentioned, those are all that way too. They're meant to
That's
be one solid track. Like they might be split up into different tracks, but it's all one thing, and you're supposed to listen to it from the beginning to the end in one listen.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to break it up.
with Shearling, there's no 8-minute section of this
Right.
album where you're like, yeah, I want to go listen to that
No.
8-minute section. Like it's not built that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but on that Devin Townsend album,
Yeah.
would it have been better as a single track, in your
So
opinion?
so I think I'm not sure if the puzzle is so I think the puzzle is even broken into tracks. So I think all three of his ambient albums are broken into tracks, but they really shouldn't be. It's just he's kind of named the sections and then split them up into tracks, but they are seamless. There's no gaps in between each of them. So I think they're meant to be just one thing, but the way he just kind of put it on the CD, he kind of split it up.
Mhm.
But that type of music is not meant to be broken up.
But Matt, what would that album have lost if it were split into tracks? And Bishop, if
Like
you want to chime in.
I think that just like I said, there's no if you just listened to, the middle 8 minutes of this album, I don't know why you would do that. It's
Right.
narrative. It's I wouldn't even compare it to a movie. Maybe some types of movies, because a movie you can be like, oh, I love that one scene where, this thing happens. But this is like, we talked about David Lynch or something like that, or a Darren Aronofsky movie where it's like, this is a story from beginning to end, and there's no real point to getting part of that story. And there's not even, I think it's because there's not that many riffs and musical sections on this album that you're going to go back and be like, yeah, let me jam out to this one driving, section and then just turn it off and listen to something else. Like, no, this is not a collection of songs. This is an emotional, cathartic exploration as one unit of thing. I don't think that listening to a section of it is meaningful.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can mostly agree with that. The thing that I compared it to that is maybe similar to what Matt is describing is that scene in the lighthouse where Willem Dafoe goes on that insane like sea curse rant and he talks for minutes and minutes and he yells hark, it kind of feels like that.
Yeah.
It's like a continuous, or in my opinion, intended as a continuous story. It's one piece where at the very least you will not feel the same impact of the 30 to 35 minute whatever section if you hadn't listened from the start up until that moment. So I agree with that. I do agree with that for sure. I wrote a shit ton about this, and I'm at least at first I'm just gonna read some of what I wrote, which is that nice things first, okay? Nice things first. This is music that needs to exist. I love that it exists. I loved Sprain. I found their 2020 record as Lost Through Collision, actually through Can This Even Be Called Music. And I thought it was sick. When I was still doing college radio, I played Sprain on WUTK like a shit ton. And if you thought that the insane rambling poetry on The Lamb as Effigy was more or less what made that album special, then Amen and Hallelujah, it should make you very happy if that's what you liked about Lamb as Effigy. I also remember that so that came out in 2023. I think Black Midi's last full-length record came out in 2023. And it also kind of had this vibe of like a breakdown, like lots of words to get out. There's something that's so important. I have something I have to tell you, sort of delivery of the vocals.
You know what? You know what that reminds me of is Slice the Cake's Odyssey to the Gallows.
Oh, okay. The companion EP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Which is
is
like almost spoken word.
I think it's a 30-minute it's ambient electronic stuff. And it's spoken word but very theatrical, like like on with Shearling and Sprain, but very like you feel it and kind of reminds me of that.
It's drama. It's
Yeah.
theatrical in that
Mhm.
sense. But yeah, if you liked Lamb as Effigy, Amen and Hallelujah, it should make you very happy. In my opinion, Shearling basically takes everything that you liked about Sprain and puts fucked up riffs where there used to be, let's be real, just like noise. That was a good bit of the Lamb as Effigy. For as much as I love that record, there were like moments where it's just 4 minutes of noise. And far be it from me to complain about noise, but that isn't why I was listening to Sprain in the first place. And I say this is a monumental record. Like I said, it's that scene in the lighthouse. It's a depiction of madness, where Willem Dafoe, he's giving this sea curse rant. It's like all in one shot. If you haven't seen that movie, I only saw it not that long ago, but it's a great movie. And that scene is especially like so over the top and comical that it's very effective at making you feel uncomfortable, but simultaneously it's funny.
It's a very good movie.
It's a great
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, I loved it. To reference the quote from the beginning, to my ears, I don't think Matt actually like touched on this. Maybe we can get his thoughts. But to me, Shearling is the feeling before vomiting. It's that horrible dread of knowing that if you plan on sleeping tonight, you have no choice. You have to throw up. Your heart rate increases, and at first you try to talk yourself down. You think, I can rest through this if I just drink enough water, or maybe I sit in the shower, the nausea will go away. But sitting in the cold shower isn't working. Your thoughts race and ricochet. Maybe you drank too much. Maybe you're sick and thought that you were getting better, but clearly aren't. You think of anything and everything other than the truth, which is that whether you like it or not, you're puking. Shearling sounds like that feeling. And I don't think that there's any other band right now whose music so perfectly executes that sort of vocalist is actively experiencing mental illness on stage right now sound. There are other bands who are like, that guy's crazy, he's having like a meltdown. With Alex's delivery, it really feels like, no, it's not a joke. It's not for the music. That guy needs to not be in a public space right now. Get him somewhere where like he can't cut himself without like realizing that he like cut himself.
This is exactly the point I was making, where it gets 14 minutes in. I was like, I shouldn't be here. Like, this is not this, or maybe it's you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be doing this public performance of this music. You need to get help.
Yeah, it's music where it feels like it's vulnerable, or intended to be vulnerable in a way where it's like that person might accidentally hurt themselves and they won't realize it. So put them in a place where there's like no 90-degree angles. But, and I'm so sorry to say this, I'm so sorry, dude. I'm sorry. This style of writing does not work for me. And let me be really, really specific here. I took a long time to think about this and like think about my feelings towards it. If I were to see this album performed live, like that video that you mentioned, I watched some of that, then fuck yeah. I would have been moved or shocked and amazed and perplexed. All of those big feelings that if someone were to tell you that your music made them feel that way, that would mean everything. But when I listen to the music in my room and I read the lyrics on Bandcamp, I feel crazy to say this. This is such a weird. I feel like an insane person to describe this. When I read these lyrics just on my computer and I'm listening to it, it reminds me so much of my early poetry and like my early journals that it feels almost uncanny. It made me. I was thinking it's like Alex is we're in an anime. He's my long lost, like equally powerful brother, but he's like gone off. He's evil now, and he's like gone off. He's strayed from the path. Like we had the same upbringing. We know a lot of the same shit, but he's using his power in a way where I'm like, you shouldn't do that. It's not good. Don't do that. I really do. I have old journals that are completely filled with this kind of writing where it's frantic and stream of consciousness. It's like intended to be read as if every single fear is revealed and every worry is monumental and every word is certain of nothing except for its own uncertainty, where you could basically make the argument that every line is about everything or nothing at the same time. It's vague and yet extremely personal. It's extremely lengthy. And it's hard to explain this feeling unless you carry the like same, what I wrote, it's hard to explain unless you also carry the same embarrassing virus. And I threw a lot of those journals away a couple years ago because I don't think that they're that good anymore. So it genuinely pains me to have not been affected by this album in the way that it has clearly affected others, because it contains all of the components to be one of my favorite records of all time. And I want to hear a new record where I say, that's the fucking best thing I've ever heard in my life. I would love that. Yahweh Nailgun, I think, is a close contender for that. So I'm very conflicted about not loving it, because on one hand, there are very few things that I feel like I am, maybe it's like egotistical or I have a big head or something. If there's like a few things that I feel like I can really critique on, one of them is writing, like poetry stuff, because I've done it for a long time. I think that the writing is immature, and I don't think that every line is needed. I think that the horse, stallion, whatever, as a literary device feels a little bit trite. Divorce Lawyers, I Shaved My Head came out in 2009, and I loved that when I was a teenager, but I can't fucking stand the cadence anymore. I have no issue with not knowing everything about a piece of art, but maybe Matt, since you love it so much, maybe you can explain these lines. Max and Ruby, one yellow, one black. If either one barks, the whole world is blown off its axis. What the fuck does that have anything to do with the horse with the protruding asshole on the cover? I watched Max and Ruby as a kid. I loved that shit when I was a kid.
My
And
kids
like,
watch it.
I still like, okay, if Max and Ruby were on the TV, I'd be like, yeah, this is good. I like that. I don't think even that it's fair to say that it's really all one song, because you look at the lyrics on Bandcamp, these are clearly just different poems that Alex wrote, I would argue probably at different times. And he is extremely, let me be really specific here. I won't say extremely lucky, but he is lucky that he has found a group of people who can tolerate that. The fact that he's playing guitar, but before I knew that, my opinions were way stronger. But he's playing guitar too. That's crazy. That makes him actually crazy. So I could never do that. That's wild. And maybe I'm just hating from outside the club a little bit. But like, I've also kind of made music that's similar to this. I have a book of poetry that is full of this, like, anything that makes sense on the page in that exact moment, where each line inspires the next line. That's the only thing that matters. I really feel like whatever it is that makes Alex and other people who write similar poetry, I've been infected by that same thing. And in my experience, I've grown out of it, maybe out of embarrassment. And that's why I kind of lean towards SWAN's take, which is like, I think those lyrics are good and they can have a great emotional impact with few sentences without much explanation. Whereas I feel like this, maybe it doesn't explain itself very much, but it says so much that there's like shrapnel. It becomes obtuse. And the final thing that I wrote is, on the other hand, I'm not sure how else to express that all-encompassing feeling. A feeling that builds pressure and breaks every vessel that tries to contain it. Music that seeks to convey that type of emotion is right to be obtuse and imperfect. If anything, it would be more wrong to omit those unrelated thoughts or to chisel those vague notions into direct statements. And so, like, I've listened to this all the way through 2 or 3 times now, and it almost breaks my heart that it isn't my favorite record ever made, because it has all the ingredients to potentially be that. But again, maybe I'm just hating from outside the club, but there's part of me that's like, I've written like this before. I think a lot of people have. And I'm glad and happy for Alex that he found a band that's willing to be like, yeah, you can say whatever bullshit you want. You can mention Max and Ruby and we don't care. I'm happy for him. I never found that in the exact same way. Uh, maybe kind of to a different degree with feculent orchiectomy, which is similar. It's like metal where it's just whatever we thought, say that, and we're making fun of slam music. But yeah, it was odd. Still, like listening to it today, it made me feel like like if you had been addicted to drugs at some point and you see another person who is like very clearly addicted to drugs, but maybe their group of friends or their family doesn't know it, but the signs are so clear to you that you like clock them. There's something about these lyrics that I read them and I'm like, I understand you in a fucked up way. I relate to you in a fucked up way. And I'm very happy that you found this band. You found these other people to help you get this vision out there. I never went to like a poetry reading because I always felt like it was embarrassing. And my writing changed. So I'm happy for Alex. I want to love this album more than I do. It's amazing. If you've not heard any shit like this, you should listen to it. It's monumental, really. But there's something about it that I've never felt this way about a record where I say it's incredible, but not for me. And I almost feel that way. And it feels tragic. It's like fucked up. It took a long time to try and condense these feelings. I'm sure he's like the nicest dude. And he's like, it's not even like that. I'm like, oh, well, sorry, dude.
I think you hit on something really interesting about, like as much as I like this album, and it's going to be, near the top of my year-end list, and we'll see how that falls out. I don't think it's, the most brilliant writing, the most brilliant masterpiece of expression ever made. I do think it's very raw. I think it's in a sense immature. I compared it because Alex compared himself to Me Without You. And what's interesting about Me Without You is they got you can see their albums get more mature, Aaron get more mature as a lyricist, be hitting on deeper themes and the same kind of poetic style, but in a smarter way. My favorite Me Without You album is their first full length, A to B Life, which is cringy in its raw, young angst and emotionalness, and I like that about it. I like that it's not as mature and refined as some of their later work. I think there's a good chance Alex could look back on this album in 20 years and be like, good Lord, I can't believe I put this out for people to listen to.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I think that like this is a deliberate authenticity that if you sanded down the rawness of it and polished it into something more maturely poetic, you would be losing some of that authentic, transparent viewpoint that you're getting of whatever it is that Alex's thoughts were as he rambled and barfed out these poetic lyrics, words, whatever. I respect that all of it is there. And as far as interpretation, I have no answer for you in terms of the lines about Max and Ruby. I chose to try to comprehend this album at a bird's eye view level, at a thematic level. Any individual line, I don't know. What the horse imagery is doing, I don't really know. I get that the horse is a penis at one point or maybe at various points in the lyrics, but I didn't like sit there with a magnifying glass and a notebook and be like, I have to interpret and decode every line of this. I don't care. I don't care at that level. I just care about the feeling that is conveyed. And I respect that the album does that in the way that it does, even if it's certainly not the way I would have done it. I would write lyrics that are personal, but in a more poetic, more refined way, but therefore less authentic.
See, I have no way of knowing this. This is just another like, I don't know, realize like real recognizes real, or like ex drug addict recognizes the behavior of another. But I look at these lyrics, I would be genuinely surprised. One, if they were all written in one sitting, and two, if any of like if more than maybe two of them had any references to horses,
Hmm.
it with in their original form. I
Oh, and
wouldn't
you're
be
saying he like
surprised,
wove them together with horse
and
imagery.
that's fine.
Yeah,
That's again, that's fine. But is that how we define? I struggle with like what authentic means or what sincere means. I think that probably the music is sincere. I don't think that there's maybe anything inauthentic, but I also don't think that it is truly unedited. And I don't think that it was written as if it was completely unaware of like shock value or its own
sure.
absurdity.
Yeah,
Um, and so from that perspective, could you say that it is authentic or sincere? In my opinion, you still can, but it just those terms I struggle with those.
Mm.
Um, I'm unsure. Uh, there's also I think maybe I mentioned this person an episode ago or two episodes ago, but music is very different. But there's a local person, my homie Schaefer. Their project name is called Earwig Deluxe, and it's just Schaefer. Schaefer makes all the music, but the live performance, really, really similar vocal style. It's super theatrical. You feel like you're being told, like the end is nigh, the bell is ringing.
Mm.
There's this almost dread to the delivery. But with Earwig Deluxe, the lyrics are really kind of funny. And so, having seen and played with Earwig Deluxe a bunch of times, this kind of delivery didn't really shock me. And I guess also just the fact that knowing it's the same dude from Lama's Effigy, which I did love. Um, maybe that was part of why it just didn't hit as hard as I like desperately wanted to.
yeah. To your point, to go back to what you and I both said about like how this feels at points like you're witnessing someone having a mental breakdown and you're seeing something you shouldn't see. But at the same time, this record was written, composed, mixed,
Right,
mastered, produced, and put out for people to consume. Like
right, yeah.
it's deliberate, it's staged in a way. So yeah, that you're right to like talk about the authenticity in the context of that. Like this is a product of music at the end of the day. Um, we are at the risk of running really long on this one album.
Yeah, no, no.
Did I did I don't I want to ask this, but I don't know if I want you to answer it because we could be here another half hour. But there's
Let's do
definitely
it.
a conversation to be had about the lyrics in this approach versus the lyrics of Charlie Looker and Extra Life, which we talked a lot about way back in the day.
No, I got it.
And they have a similar like starkness and
Sure.
visceral imagery to them. So like, how do you
Sure.
think those compare?
Charlie, he has a video where he talks about either his favorite vocalists or lyricists or writers or something similar, but he talks about valuing writers whose lyrics are clunky. Alex writes lyrics that are clunky, but they are not concise. And I think that you can say Swans to me is extremely concise, like as in the point that is trying to be made Michael can make that point with two or three sentences. On To
It's
Be
very
Kind,
distilled.
it's super distilled. And Charlie's super good at that,
Mm.
like one of the best. Uh, he's so good at it. Like what I was gonna say is the example with Swans. There's a song on To Be Kind where the line that got memed on the most is "My name is fuck," and he's just saying fuck over and over again. Am I reading into the words of that line a lot? No, but on its face, it feels like there's an easily inferred, I guess, broad intention with that line, especially with how it's delivered because he's just yelling it over and over again. there's a feeling, an emotion that is like very directly expressed to you with few words. Whereas I feel like Alex tells you every single word. And because there are so many words, it gives you more room to question what it is that he truly feels. And that's the thing that reminds me of my old writing, and the thing that I felt like I had to eventually change as I no longer felt happy with that form of writing. And Charlie's really, really good, especially like Coming Apart. All the lyrics on I'm blanking on the name right now, but my bad. I should know this.
Answer.
Secular Works Volume 2.
Okay.
Every song, We Are Not the Same, Coming Apart, What Is Carved, every single song, you know, you can get a great idea of what is felt, what's being expressed in those songs by just a single line from the hook. And that's crazy. That's like skilled writing. And it impresses me every time I listen to it. But it is also, to your point, like, oh damn, I don't like hearing someone say that sentence right now. It's like ugly. But the fact that it's so succinct and jagged, so poignant, is the thing that makes me at this point in my life say that's really good writing. You were able to make me feel this profound or big special feeling with just two sentences, as opposed to I'm I'm vomiting. Shearling is the feeling before vomiting, or the vomiting. Here's everything, I think, unedited, in its presentation, at least.
Yeah.
And I just think that is immature writing. It could be
Isn't
better.
the writing style similar with Sprain?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it was the same thing, same kind of a stream of thoughts.
Yeah,
I don't
totally.
think none of there's a couple of long songs in Sprain's catalog, but in general they're shorter, and so I don't think there's as much space to fill or as much like this Shearling album is, at least in presentation, conveying a singular narrative throughout it, but Sprain is like giving you 7 minutes of a thought or 10 minutes of a thought, and so there's not as much sort of rambling.
Okay.
And Lamb as Effigy is a little bit more like directly. I love the music of the Shearling record. I'd be stoked to listen to just the music as it is. But with Lamb as Effigy, I mean, it's just fucking sick noise rock. Like, I would be stoked to hear that by itself too. So yeah, maybe it is a little bit more palatable in the sense that there are at least songs. In my opinion, hot ass take again, kind of feel like Amen and Hallelujah. It's really separate songs. They just stitched them all together. He was like, I got 9 poems, okay? I'm gonna say they're all about horses. All right, can you like fill in the gaps a little bit? Can we stitch them all together? And they're like, yeah, we got you. You're the best.
I think I read that like this started out as a Sprain song before Sprain disbanded, and I think it kind of just grew longer and longer until it became this thing, or it probably got to like 32 minutes and he was like, it should be an hour now, right? Like we should just keep going.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's how it was written. So it's almost like a stream of consciousness compositional process. It also talks about how there were like hundreds of hours of recordings that they like chopped up and sampled from and took pieces from to build this song, which I could talk a little bit more about that, but I don't think I need to. It's interesting.
That I think is amazing. I wish I could do that. I don't work like that. I wish that I
can't.
did.
Yeah, I have to write more intentionally. It's almost like one of the Zool bands that I like, We Pyrrhic Conquerors. They
Mhm.
exist. I think it's one guy from another band, and I don't remember the name of the other band, but he samples like the individual tracks from his other band's recording and like repurposes them into these other compositions, which is really cool.
That's pretty cool. All right, sorry. I know I went fucking
No,
forever,
that
dude.
I knew that album discussion was going to take a
Yeah.
while, and I'm glad that we had it, and that was fun. But
Yeah,
now
yeah, that was
let's
great.
let Jeff get
Yeah.
into AVKRVST.
Oh,
Akrust.
I'm gonna say it with V's
Yeah.
because they wrote it with V's, so that's how I'm gonna
Yeah.
say it.
That's how you say it.
I kind of say that way in my head, even though I know it's Akrust. But yeah. So um I first got into Akrust not long after their first album, The Approbation, came out in 2023. And that album is very Opeth sounding, and I just like loved every track on that album. I feel like this new album, Waving at the Sky, strays a little bit from that sound. They have more of an original sound now. They've kind of found their own sound, and I think that kind of helps make these songs stand out better on their own as not just an Opeth clone. So I really appreciated that. I first heard a couple of the singles that came out before the album came out in the form of music videos they released, and they were kind of like these like horror slasher film ideas represented in the music videos, which I thought was kind of creative and kind of cool. So they kind of went like a darker direction in this album compared to the previous works, and really great, solid prog metal. Uh, just love this band, love everything they've done, and uh, interested to see what you guys say about them.
Anybody but me.
You want me to go first, Dave?
Go, go.
Uh, I hadn't listened to their first album, and I do need to go back and check it out. So
It's a good one.
they're new to me. Heard the Opeth immediately,
Yeah,
obviously. Like it's right up front.
yeah,
I wouldn't say it's Opeth worship. There's definitely influence there, but I would say there's more traditional prog, certainly on this album.
yeah.
This is maybe an alternate universe where when Opeth made Heritage and said, we're going to start doing more 70s prog stuff, and then they did it terribly, in my opinion, which we've talked about at length before. This is like, what if, Ghost Reverie's Watershed era Opeth brought in 70s prog influence, but stayed with like their progressive death metal core. You might get something more kind of like this. There's thick keys,
Yeah.
as a big part of their sound. I wrote kind of like if Frost started listening to Swallow the Sun, because some of this is a little bit
Okay, yeah.
doomier than than Opeth might give you. I also tried to not compare every song to Haken, but I ended up doing that a lot, especially the one that literally has the guy from Haken on
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that song is a little bit disappointing because it feels like, I don't know if it's just because Ross has guest appeared on a bunch of other bands' tracks, but the Malevolent, it feels like I've heard 10 copies of that song in the last 10 years. Like it's just a song that does that. It's like every prog band has one of those, and it's also really short, which don't do that. Don't make a 3-minute song. You're not going to get played on the radio. What are you doing? Give me 10-minute songs. Um, this band lives in
Give me
6/8.
62 minutes.
Huh?
Give me 62 minutes.
Yes, exactly. Give me the 62-minute AVKRVST song.
Yeah.
I'll check that out for sure. But if they did, it would sound certainly like 7 other songs stitched together with no thread, just like crammed against each other. Um, what was I saying? Oh, this band lives in 6/8. Every song on this album is in 6/8 with very occasional dips into 7 or 5, but they just kind of like their home base, their default behavior is to write a riff in 6/8. And that's cool.
I
Like it
mean,
sounds good.
yeah, I mean that's the Opeth formula too, right?
Yeah, Opeth is I felt like there was a lot of strictly 6 as opposed to 12/8, which Opeth lives a lot in 12/8. Um, But there's in the song The Trauma, there's a 6/8 riff that is pulled straight off of Watershed, and then a guitar lead shortly thereafter that's straight off of Still Life. Not as in rip off, but just like you can absolutely hear like if this part was on that album, 100% it would make sense. There's a line, Death Keeps Screaming My Name in the Trauma that sounds exactly like Carmelo Orlando from the band November, who I love and apparently nobody else loves. I think November is incredibly underrated and should be listened to more. And one of the things November does,
Do you mean November?
November. Yeah, one of the things they do really well is to have acoustic guitars and heavy distorted guitars running at the same time and mixed really well. And Allcrust does that too in quite a few of these songs. Um, there's a lot of lighter stuff. Families Are Forever has a lot of, light parts, but with nice prominent bass tone. The production I should mention on this album is fantastic. It's really good, really solid. But as a whole, you get to the end of it, and it's like, as a prog death fan, I enjoyed listening to that, but it didn't rise to like the upper echelon of what this genre can be for me. There's a few parts that kind of stick with you, but the band No Spoon with Opus a couple years ago, that immediately was like, wow, this is excellent prog. Like this is right up there from the get-go. I don't think Ockrust is there. I'd like to see them get there, and they have a lot of talent. They have very good songwriting chops, and I think it favorably compares to stuff like Frost and Ubiquity, another sort of Opeth influenced band that we covered on the pod, a bit heavier than Ockrust is.
Mhm.
But I thought this was very good. Not great, but very good.
All right, I can go next because it's gonna be very short. I was kind of surprised when you picked Ockrust, actually, Jeff, because I listened to like their debut album. I think it's called Premonition or something.
The Affirmation.
The
Affirmation,
approbation.
approbation. Okay, yeah. So I when that album came out,
Mhm.
the one we're talking about today, um. I went and looked and like, did I, already listen to that band? And I had listened to The Approbation, and I couldn't remember a thing about that. And, that's a thing that I'd like to say about that album as well, that new one, that I don't remember the name now. Oh my God, what am I doing?
Waving at the Sky is the new
Waving at
album.
the Sky. Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of the same thing. It's good stuff, but it's not memorable stuff. And that's basically my, review of it. So, uh, you can listen to it and have a fun time, a good time if you like, kind of prog, like influenced by Opeth, like we said. But you're probably, gonna lose that amount of time and not get it back because you won't remember it. Um, and
God
also,
damn.
yeah, it's not a bad thing. You're not gonna have a horrible time. You're just, it's just not memorable to me. And I have to talk about like that Ross Jennings featuring. And I feel like I had that discussion earlier. Was it with you guys? I don't know, but like Ross is just like featuring everywhere right now. I don't know if he needs money or something. But and my I'd like to say my appreciation for Ross Jennings has kind of fallen through the years. Like with that first album of Opeth, the Aquarius album,
Mhm.
like it was, through the roof. I was like, hell yeah, I like that. That's very good prog and a unique style of vocal. Maybe not the style, but a unique timbre of vocal, right? He
Mhm.
has that, his unique
It was
voice
very
and all.
distinctive. Like you
Yeah,
knew it was him.
exactly.
And so now when he shows up on other stuff, you're like, oh, it's him. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's positive and a negative, you could say. But the thing with Haken is, I think they, I don't know, they kind of fallen on my own scale of, uh, how good they are, because they started with that kind of really, um, really unique take on prog metal with fretless bass and circus music, and very technical, I'd say. And I feel with each passing album, they kind of went more mainstream prog, and especially with the Virus albums, I'd say, they kind of became generic, genty prog, I guess. And the other projects with Ross, he has that. Sorry, he has that project with Neil Morse. I don't remember the name of that band.
Morse Jennings and DiVirgilio.
DiVirgilio, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Just their
I don't
last
know why I
names.
could remember that.
I listened
But
to the single they put out and realized this isn't for me. And I like all
yeah,
these people,
exactly.
but like I don't need to hear this.
It's, I don't know if you could say dad rock. It's dad rock.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Neil Young
But
influenced, which is not something I want to hear.
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, that's how I feel with Ross Jennings now. I feel like, okay, maybe it's not the guy I was hyping myself up like to be that he was. And now when I see him on a on a featuring on the track or something, it's not a good omen for me. So
It's a new subgenre of prog. Prog featuring Ross Jennings is
Yeah.
its own genre. It's like you know what this is
yeah,
going to
Yeah,
sound
he was
like
on
now.
that Stardust album too.
it's gonna sound like Neil Young. So
That's great.
I also didn't have like a ton to write about it, but some of them were weirdly similar to what y'all have said. Um, I don't think you're wrong also to go off just to expand on what you're saying, Dave. Like there was a little while where Haken even kind of bled into like my world of, granted, when I was an early teenager, I was just on 4chan, like the music board, but people were hyped about the mountain so much that like I felt hyped about the mountain.
That's still my favorite Haken album.
And I had never heard of them before, but I listened to a single and I was hyped about it. So I haven't listened to much Hagen post that, but I don't think that you're wrong to say like what you're describing kind of reminds me of a little bit with Meshuggah, where back in the day they were talking about almost a little, I make the argument kind of a little similar to like the lyrics of Michael Gira, where he's like everything is nothing and nothing's everything, in life is death, and all this shit, and like that was their thing. And then by 2022 they were like, put the fucking fire guy on the album. That is the album art. What is the album called? It's called Immutable. They were like, yeah,
Immutable.
put the fucking fire guy with the knife on the cover. That's what I'm talking about.
We're disturbed now.
Yeah, they're like, yo, that looks sick as hell. I don't know what we were talking about before, but put fire guy on there. But maybe this is so AVKRVST, Akras, waving at the sky. Maybe
But wait. The thing with Meshuggah though is I think they gave nothing away in terms of music. I think they make still as much incredible music now as they did 10, maybe more years ago.
no, it's
No.
not. No. Because they mastered something that people still I don't want to go too long on this, but
This is what we do.
so, I know so many people have tried to emulate what they did like over 20 years ago, and they need to change. It's uh, uh my same qualm with Imperial Triumphant. They did that so good. Now change. And I even actually had this. This was an example. You know, you were talking about Ross being on one of these wave Crust tracks. It reminded me of when Thomas from Meshuggah was on the Imperial Triumphant track. And I was like, okay, I recognize this name. This is going to be a cool track that I like. I like Meshuggah. I like Imperial Triumphant. And then the track is just like, what was he even really doing? Like,
is it like, did he do like vocoder vocals on a track or something?
it's on the track. I have it pulled up. Lexington Delirium.
Yeah.
Yeah, what does he? It probably is just vocals because he does lyrics from Meshuggah, which is also bizarre. But anyway, my weird comparison, maybe as weird as Jeff saying everything sounds like Devin Townsend. I actually kind of felt like
It's not that everything sounds like Devin Townsend. It's Devin Townsend's my connection to other genres
yeah,
because
no,
I don't listen to a lot
I
of
gotcha.
genres.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, like as a metalhead guy,
Yeah.
some of this stuff kind of reminded me of the coolest parts of the Facelesses, like softest moments where they say, okay, we're not an alien band now. We're kind of sexier, like hornier than that. Or like maybe we read a little bit more and we're not just kind of watching like InfoWars or something. It sounds really clean. There are no AI lyrics, I don't think, and there's not an AI vocalist.
Hell yeah.
But while listening to it, I did actually pretty thoroughly enjoy the Frost record. And that one had at least this theme that I didn't have to read shit. I didn't have to look up shit. There's just the little moments in between tracks that give me this insight as to, okay, there's this nerdy little world, and here's the nerdy little world. I feel almost like a hypocrite to say it now, but I didn't pick up on some little world where you're a little guy in this world. And okay, if you're gonna be a prog band, for one, you really have to impress me to make me give a shit. But if you ain't even got the little world, like Azure had a whole ass world, Frost has at least a little bit of a world. I don't know. Like spend a little more time. Is there a little world? You tell me.
I mean,
I think the little world on this album is sort of more realistic, and
yeah,
so therefore
the music
it's less
videos
fantastic.
kind of spell out kind of a progressive of a story, and you
Okay.
kind of see a connection between the music videos if you actually watch those.
Their website is really clean in comparison to whatever the AI band is. I can't even remember now.
Lifting
Aqua,
line theory.
lifting line theory. Okay, well, in comparison, Crust, immaculate website. Great picture in the back. So whatever their little world is, maybe I'll look into it. But I appreciated in hindsight more so than on initial listen that Azure, I'm like, okay, I'm in this fucking little world. And with Frost, we're in this dystopian Fallout place. I almost missed it in this case, which is crazy. It's hypocritical, I know, but I liked it. I thought it was really clean. My standard is pretty low, but especially after like the last episode, but it didn't do anything that made me think, turn this shit off. You guys should be embarrassed. So I like it.
It's a very pleasant way to pass 45 minutes, but
Yeah.
you know, and I don't have a criticism of it, but the negative thing I could say is that it didn't make me want to listen to this album again. It made me want to go listen to really good prog.
Yeah.
Like, this almost sounds amazing. I know some things that do sound amazing. I'm gonna go check those out.
Well, maybe it's a kind of gateway to prog.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
for us, you know,
It's
we're full deep into
Right.
prog. So
The
listening
other
to
than
that
like
kind of like
yeah, other than two tracks where there are a few growling vocals, this is an album you can put on, you know, with your grandparents in the car and chill out and
Yeah.
listen to it. It's like it's inoffensive, you know. And
Yeah.
I don't want it to sound negative. I like this album. It's good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I forgot that bands could have an actual website other than just their Bandcamp page. I can't remember the last time I went to a band's website.
Every band that Jeff loves, they got a fucking website. And some of them are really clean, some of them are horrible. But this band has a good website.
It's like a children's book or album, like my first prog album, and
Sure,
this
yeah.
is it. It's Awkwardest. But I want to come back to Meshuggah with Bishop.
Oh boy.
Do you think they should have like their Opeth moment where they just go
I don't know what
in
that
a
is.
totally new
Like
direction?
Heritage, when Opeth released Heritage and changed their sound.
Yeah.
Meshuggah
Okay.
acoustic album.
No, no, no.
Or like
No, no, no.
70s
No, no,
prog
no.
rock.
No, no, no.
That
Well,
would be
no,
cool
well,
though.
maybe well, actually, yeah, because I think King Crimson kept getting weirder and weirder, and it kept being sick. Like I thought that I think Discipline is sick. But the
Mhm.
first record I listened to from them was In the Court of the Crimson King. No, it's okay. This is very topical, but I said to Jeff, I was stoked. I know he's stoked. There's a new Katamari Damacy game coming out. They've taken their formula and added little cool new things that make you think, oh wow, I'm surprised that that wasn't there in the first place. Meshuggah, there are things that they could do and still be Meshuggah that make it feel fresh. Maybe I don't know. We're already hours in, so like I would have to fucking form a thesis for this. My In the case of Imperial Triumphant is a little bit easier for me to give an example of. They can do something similar to what Kralis has done or Blood Incantation has done, where they have this real okay. Kralis is a little bit different because they're just like we're technical black metal. We're smart, but we make black metal. And then over time, Colin was like, I love synths. I'm gonna play that. They put out 3 synth records where you don't really have to listen to that. Like you don't have to care. But then they put out Inorganic Rights and it combines the synth shit with their technical black metal and it's good as hell. Blood
Go Be Forgotten
Incantation,
did that too.
Go Be
I
Forgotten,
love that album.
one of the best album titles ever made. I tell people to Go Be Forgotten all the time. That's great. Imperial Triumphant, they could add just piano, just have a piano. Quit having that person come into the studio for every album to go, like as soon as I heard that woman or whoever it is, I don't actually know. I don't wish to be offensive. Whoever they've had on the last 4 records come just shriek. I expected it for the new album before I had heard anything. And as soon as I heard that fucker come in and start yelling, I was like, bro, do anything else. Why do you keep having this person come just yell? There's no point. I already hear the person's yell is cool. It's cool, but I have a pretty high expectation for the band that has like kind of stood above 95% of the other, dissonant, whatever black metal bands. So, and maybe it's an unreasonable expectation for innovative bands to consistently innovate. I understand that too, but I haven't been surprised by Meshuggah's music. That's all I'm saying. And they could surprise me. They're super good at all of their instruments. They're so good at it.
I think
Fire Guy
the last time
doesn't surprise me.
Meshuggah did something that was interesting was Catch 33, where they said
It's their best
basically
record.
they did like the long, let's do our sound, but a continuous thing. And I remember, I think I've even told this on the pod before, but my friend was showing me that album on his iPod back when people listen to music on iPods. And we listened to it for like 7 minutes. And he said, what track do you think we're on? And I said,
Yeah,
track 1, because it hasn't changed. He's like, we're on
exactly.
track 3. I'm like, what the heck? That's
That's
unbelievable.
my favorite. That's my
I love that.
favorite
I think that
Meshuggah.
album's really great. Well, no, my favorite Meshuggah album is the I EP. I think that is brilliant. I love I. Have
I
you
gotta
heard
listen
I?
to
You're
that.
looking at me like you
No,
haven't heard I.
no, I haven't.
Oh man. It's one
It's
24
great.
minute song. I was
21, I think.
first or after Catch 33. I thought it came out first. I don't remember.
Oh, I
But
think, yeah, I think before.
here's what happened with Meshuggah. They started out much more raw and experimental and then found their way to the let's do complex rhythms with like 4/4 drums on the cymbal behind it, but also we're secretly in
Yeah, but
23/16, but also we're gonna just cut off whatever measure makes it a 4/4 loop. Yogev
Yeah.
Gabe, who's done breakdowns of like every Meshuggah song, it's
Yes.
always like, oh, there's 7 repetitions of 19 and then an extra 3 notes to make it round out. And as soon as he like revealed that to me, I was like, oh, that sucks. Because that feels like a cop out. Like you're not committing to the odd time if you're
yeah,
still at the end of the day squeezing it into a 4/4 box. You don't need to do that. Don't do that. So like now I never look at them the same way. But what I was gonna say though is ever since Catch 33, they have like, you know how if you just sort of rub a rough stone over time, it smooths out? That is what has happened to them. They are the
Yeah.
same thing that they were, but all the roughness and all the experimentation has been smoothed out. And so now when they put out an album, it's like, oh, here's 9 songs that sound like modern Meshuggah gent stuff. That's all it is. They're not doing anything else now. They're not taking a left turn. They're not incorporating a new influence. So I agree with you on that. On Imperial Triumphant, I haven't gotten mad at them for that yet because I think there are nuanced differences between their records, but they're starting to get that way. And I worry that I think they're getting trapped in their gimmick because once they settled on this like 1920s Gilded Age New York is our thing, you can only do so much with that. And they're trying to do different things with that, but it's all still that. And it reminds me of like a Forest of Stars. If you're going to be a Victorian themed band from the 1880s, great for a few albums. And then what do you got? Like, where do you go from there? How do you evolve when like this is your gimmick? And they, I think,
like
are now working on new music, but their last album, it kind of hit me that way. Like their first album and their third album are two of my favorite black metal records of all time. And then after that, they kind of just got to the point of being like, yeah, okay, this is a new Forest of Stars record, I guess. So it's like,
like
They already
Imperial
got
anything else.
trapped.
Triumphant.
They already got trapped and they didn't have to Ezrin get me in the studio with you because we could have done something better than Gold Star. That's all I'm saying. Get me in the studio.
Like Imperial Triumphant, they should bring back barbershop quartets.
The
I've said it.
Yeah.
I think an interesting direction for them is the 47-second middle track of Gold Star called New York City has Yoshiko Ohara on vocals and is like a 47-second burst of noise rock tinged black metal. Do that. Give me an album of that. That's something new.
Yeah, I mean, they could be their own episode, but like they love the loungy shit. They could have more weird piano. They could lean even more into the different like eras of jazz that they touch on just a little
Totally.
bit. They could have more of that. Sure, they could have fucking I don't know exactly how it would work, but they could have barbershop quartet. Like they could have more vocal oriented things. They even if like you say that as a joke, but you could make a very ugly song where the core of the song are just multiple voices who are
They did. It's
harmonizing.
Gold Star from Gold Star. It's like it's an old advertisement, but it's just layered weird vocals.
Mm, I
You know,
wa-
and
what did you think
another
about
thing.
Snooze?
Yeah. Let's get to Snooze.
What did you think?
All right, all right, all right. So, one last thing on Meshuggah though. There's a very good other Meshuggah band that released an album this year. It's called Poltergeist, and it's just Meshuggah, but another band, and it's good. So go listen to them.
Okay, that's not what I thought
Snooze.
you were gonna say. I thought you were gonna say Viljarta, and I was gonna
Oh yeah.
say
Nope, nope,
okay,
nope.
What about
thank you.
CB Murdoch? They're a good Meshuggah band too.
Yes, this too. but Poltergeist is from this year, so
Okay.
and it's Meshuggah. It
Will you send that? Because I'm curious.
sure, yeah. Snooze.
Snooze.
Um, so I'm just gonna read their Bandcamp description because it's very telling.
It's
It,
perfect.
it 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 says a happy, heavy math rock band from Chicago. Everything in that sentence is true. There is no lie.
Where's the
Like
lie?
they're yeah, they are happy math rock and they are heavy math rock.
They're from
And
Baltimore.
they are happy and heavy. And it's amazing. And yeah, so I've listened to that band since their I think 2017 album, actually extremely. And before that, they only had a demo from 2016. Um, and I've actually listened to it again today just to like refresh my memory of that album. And they didn't change much since then. Like the new album, which is called I Know How You Will Die, and yelling at me while doing so.
Mhm.
Um, I think I'd say it's heavier though. I think they became heavier. They became more crunchy, especially with their sound or their distortion and all of that. Their mixing, it's much more punchy than they used to be. But after their debut album, they had the album called Familiaris, which is the kind of the scientific name or the Latin name for the dog, and it's a concept album about like a dog. So it's fantastic. It's very good. And they had a bunch of other albums before that, but I Know How You Will Die is a very heavy math rock album. It's it's not a math core album. I wouldn't say that. Uh, it's in the very fine line between math rock being heavy and mathcore, a light mathcore band.
Totally.
And they have like all these riffs that you're kind of used to. When you listen to metal, you're just kind of used to the minor mode and Phrygian and all that sort of minor sounding stuff. And they just riff in major modes. And you're like, when you play music, playing in major is harder than playing in minor because it always seems to sound, I don't know, kitsch or just just kind of
Cheesy.
bad. Yeah, cheesy, right? But they do so much incredible riffs with like that that major tinge and upbeat stuff, and it's all, I don't know, man. It's great. If you want to have a fun time, go listen to that album. They have some harsh vocals, but mostly it's clean vocals and vocal harmonies. They're very good with vocal harmonies, and they have awesome riffs. So just dive in, and like Matt said, don't snooze on that. Like, but I want to hear your takes.
I can go first. I can go first. I also wrote that their Bandcamp is super accurate. It is happy, heavy math rock, and I didn't really think of it that way, but it is interesting. Just the tiny little differences where I would say, yeah, it's. I don't really think of it as mathcore. It's not full of the like minor second. It's not got the panic chord. I don't think that their top two strings are tuned a half step apart. It does feel really like major and happy. And I'm surprised that like not only is it hard to write that just as a musician, if you're into this kind of heavy music and feel happy with it, it's hard to write a full album of that
Mm,
and convince other people like no, it's still heavy, and it not feel cheesy, but they really do somehow kind of like write completely around the typical like mathcore and math rock
I'm
stuff.
feeling great.
Yeah.
Just having
I'm
like
happy and I know how
chuckles.
you will die.
Yeah. I saw people post this in Mathcore Index a good bit, and the album art and the name will mislead you because it is really, really pretty. Uh, but it looks like the album cover from Helpless, which is super heavy. What it kind of reminded me of immediately is something that Dave sent me, which is Freighter, which is also somehow crazy good. That's Freighter. Um, Somehow super happy, playful, colorful, and like goofy math rock. That might be a little bit closer to mathcore at times. It reminded me of the enthusiasm of Freighter. It also made me imagine if like giraffes were able to just restart or start now, but we had all the technology, like recording technology that we have now. People, 20 years ago were way more afraid of like bass altogether. Snooze is not afraid of bass. They're not afraid of low mids. It's a super thick and like beefy sounding record. The production kind of reminded me a little bit of Good Tiger's last full length record, which I also really liked. Um, it's music that is aware of all these influences that felt at one time really prevalent. Giraffes is a good example of that. Look Mexico is another example of that. Maybe even like early maps and atlases, kind of, where really technical music that's happy in a way that feels honest or without being so happy that it feels unusual or unnatural. Uh, but I really liked it. My After Dave sent me Freighter, I really liked it and sent it to my dad. And my dad loved Freighter. And so when I was listening to all these records again the other day, I sent my dad Snooze and he was like, this is good as shit. So it's dad approved.
Awesome.
I thought it was really good. I hadn't listened to any of their other stuff, but I should because there's so much math rock now that maybe I'm like being an old man yelling at cloud, but I don't love math rock bands that just try to fit in a million notes into every single riff and it's like capo tapping bands.
Mhm.
I don't really care about that. I don't want to
I
name
call those
names.
I call those tap rock because it's usually not very mathy.
Yeah.
It's all 4/4 and tapping, but it's good.
I don't
I like kind of stuff. It's just not math rock.
I'm not naming names, standards, but I
Yeah,
don't like that. I
invalids.
don't invalid actually that might be I get them all confused. They sound similar in my mind. Invalids, shut the fuck up. I hear it, I'm like, that's sick, dude. Bye. But with Snooze, it's great. I thought it was really good. Really good pick.
What we talked about that in another episode about like, do you need to be like in pain, a tragic artist to make good stuff? But this brings me the question, what do you write about on a happy album so that it doesn't sound cheesy and you know
The Lord
and
Jesus
Bishop, you're
Christ.
the writer here, so
I haven't read the lyrics for this, but I would be surprised if the lyrics are like, you know, Veggie Tales or some shit. You probably haven't heard of that. You live in Canada, but like I would assume that just based off of the melodies of the record, that the lyrics are probably bittersweet and that there's some sense of like personal mourning, even if it is for just something that has happened in the past and then time has gone on. Like you can write about things in a happy way. The music can sound happy, but the lyrics could don't have to necessarily match. I mean, take like all of country music up until like 2000 is an example of that. So I haven't read the lyrics, but I would be, surprised if there's not at least a tinge of something that if you were to just read it on its own, you would think, oh, that's kind of dark, or that's kind of bitter or sad or whatever. There's a way to do it, of course.
I can go next. I really like this album. I actually kind of thought it sounded a bit like the Tea Club at times. There's a little bit of progginess in it. Um, I haven't listened to too much math rock, so I can't really comment on its comparison to other math rock, but I did like kind of the mixture of heavy and melodic and just uh, really the album flowed really well for me, and I just kept coming back to it um, when I was listening to all these albums, and it was probably the one I came back to the most. Um, and I was even listening to it in the car with my kids, and they seemed to
Yeah.
enjoy it too. So it's kid approved as well as dad approved.
Awesome.
Music for all generations.
Yeah, but yeah,
One
I really
thing
enjoyed it.
I'll just say, I'm looking at the lyrics on Bandcamp. The first song that has lyrics, it's a breakup song. So
All
they're
right.
hiding the whining in major key, which is
Mhm.
fine. It
All right.
works,
I
but they're hiding.
okay. I think Dave and Bishop are overselling how happy this is. This album's heavy as balls, man. Like it's intense. There's like
Happy, heavy.
big sludgy riffs and it's not all major. I mean, I wrote
It's not all, no.
the first the first track is like thick vocal harmonies for 2 minutes, and then the first real song that kicks in, Expectation, is playing an acoustic melodic riff with a sharp 2 and flat 7 in the scale. That's cool. It's not quite major, but it's also like it is a major, mode, you could say. It's like
Mhm.
Mixolydian sharp 2. Um, but it's cool. And this band, I wanted to talk about Snooze after All Crust because a lot of the time I was listening to Snooze today, I was thinking back to like All Crust should have done a little bit more. Snooze does. They're doing a lot
Mhm.
on this album. There's a lot of dynamics, there's a lot of like jarringly different, riffs juxtaposed next to each other. There's really complicated, I wouldn't say polyrhythmic stuff, but just like that's where the math rock comes into this. I don't listen to almost any math rock because I think of it all as that sort of tappy, bright, sparkly stuff that you guys were talking about, and that does nothing for me. I don't listen to math rock because it never sounds like Snooze. So when I heard this, I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can get behind this. This is great. Yeah, the beefy production, I use the word weighty and grimy. It is this like really thick, especially the drums. The drums have such heft to them on this album.
Mhm.
Um, but then they will do things like at the end of Expectation, everything drops out and they start doing these like do 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 do
Yeah,
do like
my kids
what is
commented on
this
that too.
Sesame Street all of a sudden? Like
They're
what is
like, what happened
happening
to the
here?
music? Like,
Yeah. And then they build that back up and bring the heavy
yeah,
riffs back to do that part, but on heavy instrumentation. So like that's cool. I love that.
yeah.
Then they do all kinds of stuff like that. There's a section of songs from like Overheard from the Void through I Listened, which are very heavy, just nonstop heaviness. And I Listened in particular, that song starts off like slamming your head into the concrete, um, which is an ironic title because they're not listening in that moment. They're bashing you down. There's rhythmic stuff in that song around 2 minutes in that is peak rhythmic shenanigans.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites on the album. Um, there's moments where they do like synth layerings or maybe orchestra layerings, which I'll get to in a second, um, with the heaviness, and it's like post metal or um something else I was going to compare it to, but a little bit of that, a little bit of the ISIS, like I'm wearing in my shirt. It's like yeah, this is good. So there's math rock blended with sludge, blended with some sprinkles of like mid 2000s heavy screamo, like Beloved and other bands that I didn't really listen to. I was like racking my brain for other bands I could compare. And all I could think of was bands that don't fit that comparison, that are just like more emo or mall core type stuff. And I'm like, that's not what they're evoking. But there was this sort of like underground heavy screamo stuff that bits of that are bubbling up in parts of Snooze. Um, Here's the thing with this album for me. It's not the only thing. I think this is a great album. I loved it. I rate it very highly. Probably will end up in my year-end top 10, maybe. But when I went to the Bandcamp and I hadn't clicked play yet, album art's cool. They're yelling at me with the title. It's got some, diverse track lengths and all that. And then it's got the band. Then it's got like a 16 or 20 piece choir. And then it has the following instruments performed by people in orchestra: alto sax and ferolia, which I don't know what that is, banjo, cello, clarinet, euphonium, oboe, piccolo, and flute, trombone, trumpet, violin. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be great. As somebody who is currently working on getting orchestra members to perform on my next album, I'm like, I can't wait to hear how these are used, because the question when a band has orchestra access like that is, are they going to blend it with the heavy stuff, or are they going to put orchestra in the ambient sections because they don't know how to blend orchestra with metal? Let's find out. And I wrote in my notes as I was listening track by track through this album, I got to track 4 and I was like, where's the orchestra? And I got to track 9 and I was like, where's the orchestra? And I finished the album and I still don't know where the orchestra is. What are these 10 people doing on this album?
They blended it so good.
Maybe, but like, then why do it? Here's the thing. And my suspicion is maybe some of that synth stuff is actually, orchestra. Last time we talked about Chris Bierning, and I mean, that's the point of that is big band. There's 5 trumpets and trombones and saxophones and all that kind of stuff, and it's integrated into the composition. Snooze had access to all these willing musicians to write parts for them and make them feature on this album, and I didn't hear it. I don't know where they are, and I don't know what they're doing. I'm going to show you this, a little peek behind the scenes here. There you go.
Okay, yeah.
Cheryl played flute on the new Patmos and Toimos album. She did 22 different parts. You're going to hear her. She's all over this thing. And there's going to be 15 to 20 other people playing other orchestra instruments with similar density, and they're used in heavy parts, they're used in light parts. That's what you do when you have access to musicians that can play those things. You give them something to do. So I was a little disappointed with how Snooze utilized those musicians. I was so psyched to hear what they did, and then just kind of fell flat. So that, as much as I liked what was on the album, it didn't live up to the expectations that the credits made me think it was going to be.
What the fuck is euphonium? You got euphonium, and I'm like, no, you didn't. And I don't even know what that is.
It's similar to a tuba, but higher pitched. I might be wrong about that. I'm pretty bad understanding brass instruments, which has been very interesting to write for them, being like, hey, what do you want to play this on? I don't even know what a euphonium does. So, yeah.
So if you go track by track on Bandcamp and click on the track, they have specific credits.
Didn't know this.
On each track.
Well, no, I did know this. I mean, I knew. Oh, I see. I mean, I looked at the lyrics, but you're saying like you actually have to click to the
on
track,
it,
and then they'll tell you.
So the big orchestra seems to be on the first like intro track with the choir and all of that. On the second track, there's choir and the flute thing.
Sure.
But yeah, you can find with that. It's mostly choir, I think, because each track seems to have the choir present. Well, not each track, but many of them.
It's some good music. It's some good music.
You like
I get Snooze confused with At first, I thought this was Pound. I get the one
Okay.
word bands confused. But this was really good. It is happy and it is heavy. I felt something similar where I was like, clearly they've made some money either from music or from their jobs to have that many people contributing.
Hmm.
Uh, I kind of assumed the choir was with the part that you mentioned where it like turns into like happy kids music or whatever. I thought maybe it was that. But all the other instruments, yeah, it's that's pretty tough to pick out. Euphonium,
I
it
think
ain't
like
it ain't
I went
shining.
yeah, I went through the tracks and it seems to be mostly on the first, like the intro track. Maybe the big swell that we hear, that's the orchestra.
Mm.
So they could only afford 2 minutes of their time and not
Yeah.
put them all over the
Yeah,
album.
they were yeah, it was hourly. I guess my
Exactly.
my very final thing is Matt. If you haven't listened to it, uh math rock band that is the greatest of all time. Uh oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name. You can speak over me. Dave sent it to me. Uh
Math rock.
yeah. I can't
Oh my
believe I'm
God.
blanking on this right now. They're so good. It's definitely in my liked music for sure. Um
When did I send that to you?
it's been a few years now.
Oh my God.
I'm the worst fan of all time. I'll find it in like 2 seconds.
I
Um,
want to throw out names, but I don't want to be
oh
wrong.
no. I remember now. Hikes, another
Oh
one
yeah,
word.
so good. Oh my God.
Hikes, their
Huh.
record, Mahal Kita.
Oh yeah.
That is like the fucking best, dude. Talk about like amazing
It
music,
hurts.
and it's perfect and the best lyrics. Uh,
Man,
so
it
good.
hurts. It hurts to listen to that album.
Yeah, devastating and incredible. That's
Oh
all.
man.
Hmm. All right.
There, I also want to mention Into It, Over It, because I think they did a split with Hikes.
Yeah, yeah.
And while I'm not, I'm not always on board with Into It, Over It, depending on their songs, I think that split they did, the two songs they had on that were just incredible.
And it has one of my favorite hikes tracks, Crown
Yeah.
Shyness. Perfect
Mm.
Oh
song.
yeah. My God. Yeah. Well, you thanks for reminding me of that because it's so good.
It is super good.
They
Uh
also have an album I see called Lilt, which is funny because as I was making notes for this, I realized that how much I use the word lilting to describe a soft melody in a music part. And I was like, I need to learn more language for how to describe melodic riffs.
yeah, maybe you could ask for a thesaurus for Christmas or something.
I just asked ChatGPT for some new words. Psych.
Don't do that.
Psych. Not doing that.
Hey, Bishop, what was the band I had to send you earlier? You
Had
told
to
me
send
to,
me?
yeah, you told me to send you a
Oh, the
band.
poltergeist.
Oh
Was
yeah.
that? Okay, okay. Good. All right. Wrapping up.
So
Matt, do
good.
you want to go?
Oh, am I wrapping up? I can.
I don't know.
I think this is going to end up being one of our longest regular episodes, but there was a
Yeah.
lot of interesting stuff to talk about. I loved hearing all of what you guys brought to the table. I really enjoyed all these albums, and I think we've got some good stuff on the radar for quarter 3. Oh, also, we should briefly mention, other than these four, what did we enjoy from quarter 2? Let's check my
Oh my
library
God.
because I don't even remember.
I had a tough time choosing, but
Oh, All Men Unto Me, Requiem.
yeah,
That would
so
have
good.
been, that was like my backup choice. That album is amazing. And you want to talk about worship music? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I want to say Changeling and Cosmic Cathedral. They were both
Yeah.
great albums.
Cosmic Cathedral, I was a little skeptical of because, you
Yeah,
can get a little burned out on Neil Morse. I
yeah.
thought Jeff might pick this album and we'd talk about it. And what I was going to say is it's remarkable. Neil Morse has an incredible gravity where he can take any three or four other musicians and turn them
Mhm.
into a Neil Morse project. And it just sounds, they don't all sound
Yeah.
exactly the same. And there was like, so this album has Chester Thompson, who was the drummer for Frank Zappa and the touring drummer for Genesis on.
Really?
And I was like, dang, that's nuts. And yeah, it's a great album. Noise Trail Immersion, new album,
Yep.
really good.
I had McKinley Dixon that I almost picked. It's like a jazz hop, uh, like rap with orchestral things. It's
Yeah,
a great album. Also, Bio Noise Generator, kind of jazz grind or something. I don't know. The new Anfoglier,
mm,
symphonic black metal, uh, Tolkien themed. I think it was great. Yeah.
I tried listening to a bunch of stuff. There was stuff I enjoyed. I don't think that anything there was, it felt like there was nothing that really clicked with me a ton. I did like Snooze. I liked Swans. Shearling clicked with me in a like aggressive way. I did like Bio Noise Generator too. Um,
Mhm.
maybe Aya with their EP Hexed, I thought was cool. Um, yeah, it was a weird for me personally, like a weird kind of stagnant. I wanted to like the Noise Trail Immersion album more than I actually did. I thought it was good. Um, it was a rough patch for me.
Yeah, I didn't really listen to too much. The Cosmic Cathedral, it was good, but I just didn't um click with it too much. Maybe I have to listen to it more, but I guess I'm just kind of burnt out on Neil Morris. He releases so much stuff that it's just hard
yeah,
to just like keep going back to that.
yeah.
There were a couple other things that Dave recommended to me. I think Moon Letters was one of them.
Oh yeah.
That one I thought was pretty good. There were a couple others, and I almost kind of missed Ocrust because I wasn't really listening to much music, and I listened to the singles leading up to it, and then just completely missed like the day it came out, and so I went back. I was like, oh yeah, Ocrust, yeah, I like that, and so that's what I picked. But yeah, I should probably go back and listen to a lot more of the stuff that I missed. But there's only so much time and so much
Yeah.
stuff coming out.
Let us know in the comments what other great albums we've missed from this year so far. And I think that's going to be it. We'll see you next quarter with some more crazy albums.
Yeah.
Thanks for
So
watching.
just a fun fact. I think Jeff, do you have the time?
What's that?
The run time of the episode?
Uh, it doesn't give me a time stamp, but it's definitely been like over 2.5 hours, probably 2 hours, 45 minutes at this point.
So yeah, you would have listened to the entirety of the Swans album by that point.
Yeah.
True,
That's yeah.
true.
So which one do you prefer?
I think I'd probably listen to us if I'm being real.
Maybe Swans in the background?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could do that too.
All right. See you next time, guys.
Bye.
See ya.